Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're becoming detectives, and the mystery we're trying to solve is a big one. How in the world do we know anything about what happened thousands of years ago? It all kicks off with something as simple as a newspaper headline. A young reader, Rashida, saw the words 100 years ago, and it got her thinking. Think about it. It's hard enough to remember what happened last week without checking your calendar, right? So how could anyone possibly know what happened a century ago, or even thousands of years ago? And that is the big question we're diving into today. We're going to look at the clues people left behind and see how today's detectives, historians and archaeologists, piece together the incredible story of our pasts. All right, let's get into it. First up, the detective's toolkit. Now, we're not talking about fingerprints or smoking guns here. The clues we're looking for are way bigger. They're the actual remnants of entire lives and civilizations. So, historians have a word for these clues: sources. But you can just think of them as puzzle pieces. It could be a handwritten book, a carving on a rock, or even just an old clay pot. And once we find these pieces, that's when the real fun begins, trying to sit them all together to see the bigger picture. Okay, let's look at our first piece of evidence. This is a manuscript, and it is quite literally a story sent through time. It was written completely by hand on palm leaves about 1,000 years ago. Imagine that. The thing is, these messages were super fragile. They were written on palm leaves or tree bark. A lot of them were just eaten by insects or turned to dust over the centuries. So the few that actually survived, usually because they were kept safe in places like temples, are unbelievably precious. They're like little windows into a world that's long gone. But hey, not all clues were that delicate. Some were made to last. Take a look at this inscription. It was carved into solid rock over 2,000 years ago in what is now Afghanistan. This message wasn't going anywhere. And that's because inscriptions were basically public announcements. A king would have his orders or his big battle wins carved right into stone for everyone to see. You can think of them as the permanent official billboards of the ancient world. Of course, some of the most amazing clues don't have any words on them at all. We're talking about the actual stuff people made and used and left behind. A simple clay pot can tell you a ton about their technology, and a little silver coin, well, that can tell you all about trade and power. And this is where archaeology comes in. Archaeologists are the ones who dig under the earth to find these things: tools, jewelry, even animal bones. Those bones can tell us what people ate. All these objects are like the silent witnesses to history, just waiting for someone to find them and tell their story. Okay, section 2, mapping out ancient lives. So we've got our clues, right? Manuscripts, inscriptions, and all these artifacts. Now let's see how we use them to figure out not just how people lived, but exactly where and when. You can think of this map as our crime scene in a way. The hills, the mountains, and especially the rivers, these were the original highways and neighborhoods for ancient people. The land itself shaped everything about their lives: where they could grow food, the routes they took to trade, everything. And when you start plotting what you find onto a map and timeline, well, that's when the story really starts to come alive. You can literally see agriculture popping up in the hills 8,000 years ago. Then, boom, the first cities spring up along the Indus River. And later, powerful kingdoms form along the Ganga. All the clues start to connect like dots on a map of time. All right, section 3, decoding the past messages. So, we found our clues, we've put them on a map, but now we have to figure out what they're actually saying. And what's really cool is that sometimes the clues are hiding in plain sight, in words we still use today. Just look at the names for India. The word India actually comes from the Indus River, a name that Iranians and Greeks used when they came across it thousands of years ago. And Bharat? That comes from the name of a group of people mentioned in the Rig Veda, which is an incredibly ancient text. So even the names themselves are like little historical breadcrumbs telling a story about geography, travel, and who people were. But what happens when you find a clue that's written in a language nobody understands? This is the ultimate challenge for our detectives. Imagine finding this amazing stone carving, just packed with information, but it's written in a script that no one has been able to read for thousands of years. The process of cracking that code, that's called decipherment. Probably the most famous example of this is the Rosetta Stone. It was an incredible find because it had the exact same text written in 3 different scripts. One of them was ancient Greek, which scholars could already read,
That was the key. They noticed that the names of kings and queens were always inside this little oval frame called a cartouche. So they matched the sounds from the Greek names to the Egyptian symbols in the cartouche, like figuring out a lion symbol stood for the L sound. And just like that, they cracked the code and unlocked the secrets of an entire civilization.
Okay, section 4. Not one past, but many. So as we start putting all these clues together, the decoded messages, the ancient coins, the handwritten stories, we start to realize something really important. Something that might even surprise you about the story we're telling. The title of the book this is based on is Our Pasts, plural. Why pasts? Well, it's a really important distinction. It's meant to make us stop and think, history isn't just one single story that was the same for everyone. The past was a completely different experience depending on who you were. And this really gets to the heart of it. We know a ton about kings and queens, right? Because they made sure to keep detailed records of all their big battles and victories. But what about farmers or hunters or craftspeople? They didn't usually keep records of what they did every day. So what we know about the past is really shaped by whose stories managed to survive. And that's exactly why archaeology is so important. It helps us dig up the stories of ordinary people, the ones that were never written down. So that brings us right back to our main idea. Historians really are detectives of time. And the investigation is far from over. Every new archaeological dig, every manuscript that's found, it's another piece of the puzzle. The story of our pasts is still being written. It's a detective case that is never, ever closed. And it just leaves you wondering, what other clues are still out there, just waiting to be found?